So, this is a position that I haven't been in a while. It's like my phone is like balanced between my two knees and I'm just holding them like this. This is good. It's been a while since I've done this. Anyway, so this video is about my Japanese. I have been learning Japanese for like the last... since sometime before Christmas, and it's been... well, my first language is English. And learning English first, and then going to learn Japanese. It's a struggle. They're completely different. The way the language is structured is basically the complete opposite. So, I think the hardest part for me has been learning. So far, my biggest struggles have been learning the new alphabets, like hiragana, katakana, and there's kanji as well. But I'm not really expecting myself to master kanji. Even people who, it's like mastering kanji would be like someone who speaks English knowing every single English word. It's not a thing. And so hiragana is how they write Japanese words when not using kanji. It's the letters that make up Japanese words. But Japanese stuff, it's not like A is represented. Well, actually, that's not a good example. It's not like K has its own thing. It's more like syllables. Like, the vowels all have one. A, E, I, O, U. But also, after that, it's and N. N has its own as well. But, after that, it's be, boo, ke, ku, ki, stuff like that, it's more like syllables and not like individual letters. So just learning all of those has been hard. And there's also katakana, which is pretty much the same, like A, E, I, O, U, and then there's the same syllables as hiragana, and sometimes the shapes are similar, like ka in hiragana and ka in katakana might have they have a really similar shape, so it's easy to remember what ka in katakana is if you already know what it is in hiragana, but sometimes they're different, so it all depends. But so knowing hiragana, I have hiragana pretty much memorized, and I can write in it, so it's alright. I have a book that you can practice drawing and stuff like that for it teaches for all of hiragana, all of katakana, and it has 700 kanji in it as well to learn, so that's been helping me out a lot. And I have to say though, the biggest struggle has been memorizing everything. But hiragana is for writing in Japanese. Katakana you use if you want to spell a foreign word. Like if you want to spell camera in Japanese, you would use katakana, not hiragana, because hiragana is native, and katakana is used to spell non-native words. Kanji is not really, it's not like a letter, it's more like a word. Like one kanji can represent a word, like a whole word, or a whole concept. So a kanji can represent the entire concept of being above something, stuff like that. So it's a bit more complicated, and I have different readings depending on different things, and that's just so complicated to me. But besides that, struggling to katakana and hiragana, I can get behind. It's just a new alphabet to spell Japanese words. It's not too complicated. But it's just the memorization. But kanji is so complicated, just comprehending the different readings, and that if you see it in a sentence, it could mean two different things, either the Japanese meaning or the Chinese meaning, and it's so complicated. I swear, every time I see one, I'm oh, this means this, and then they'll be no, it's the other reading. It's so frustrating, and there's a gazillion kanji. There's there's just as many kanji as there is English words. How am I supposed to it's a lot. But right now, my biggest struggle is the grammar because in Japanese they don't really have like, there's no subject, like they don't, you can use, there is a word for like I and stuff like that, but like they don't really use it in a sentence often. Like I is used more than like she, he, stuff like that. Like nouns aren't really used like at all. It's like what you say is based on context. Like for example, kore is you would use at the beginning of a sentence to say like, what is this? And you're pointing at something that you have. If you're pointing at something you have in your hand and you're asking what it is, you would use kore at the beginning of the sentence. If you wanted to ask what someone else is holding, you would use sore, or just something close to them. Like, you know, if you guys are sitting if you're sitting out on like your deck and there's like a table and you're both sitting in chairs at the table on like either end, and like someone has like a bottle of pop and it's a brand you've never heard of and you're asking what it is, you would use sore because it's not something close to you. If you're using something close to the listener but not to you, then you use sore. You use are if it is far away from both of you. Like, it's are is like, hey, what's that over there, kind of meaning. And you would use it, so it changes depending on the context. And that's confusing because it means that one sentence could be said in so many different, you know, it's just a bit, the context part of it is a bit confusing. Japanese sentence structure is something that I think I've got it down instinctually, but if I try and think about it, it gets really complicated. Like, I seem to manage to put things in the right place even when I try. But sometimes if I think too hard, it'll get really complicated to me and I'll start to stress out about how complicated it is. But I have this notebook. It's my K-pop notebook. I use Duolingo, but I also listen, like I watch anime, I listen to Japanese music, so I'm doing more than just Duolingo. And I'm writing notes as I'm doing Duolingo. I'm writing all kinds of notes in my book. I've got so many notes. So, for example, I've got notes on like a bunch of kanji that I've learned. Number 2. Lots of notes here. Yes. Kunyomi is what the Japanese reading is called, and onyomi is what the Chinese reading is called. And in terms of different readings, the Japanese use both readings when they're writing, which is why it's confusing. But, for example, I don't know how to describe the kanji, so I'm just going to show it to you. Oof, this is hard to do backwards. This one right here. It looks like a rectangle with a line through it. That one. That one can be read as either naka, using konyomi, or chu, using onyomi. So, China, in, Japanese is Chugoku. And, but, you can also use it to spell Tanaka, which is a Japanese name. So, it really depends. I knew that was going to happen. It happens every time I do this. But, indeed, there is a lot to learn in terms of kanji. It gets very complicated, and so it's very frustrating for me. That's just my introduction thing. Yes, that is the universal. If you add ka to the end of a sentence, it will transform it magically into a question. That is what I have learned. I've also learned that, I've learned a lot, but, I can't list off everything that I've learned in a YouTube video because that would make it like an hour-long video, because I've been learning for a while, so there's tons of notes. But I have learned that if you add domo this is good. Politeness is so important in Japan. You have to be polite. If you're not, there is no such thing as respect has to be like earned or whatever like that. You are respectful or you are considered rude, and that's just how it is to like people that aren't your friends, like strangers to some degree. But especially like your boss and stuff like that, like you have to be respectful. So if you're with friends, you could say domo for thank you. This is all about saying thank you to somebody. If you were to say thank you in different situations, you could say domo with friends. You could also say arigato with your friends. If you add domo to pretty much anything, as I've noted in my book, it adds emphasis on the sentence, which means if you add it onto a sentence that is meant to be a thank you, then you are emphasizing how thankful you are. So if you say domo arigato, it comes off as like thank you very much, which you could use with friends. Domo arigato, you would use with friends. Adding gozaimasu at the end of it adds like extra politeness, and it's used when you're speaking to people you don't know. So you would say arigato gozaimasu if you're saying thank you to like a boss or a teacher or something like that. You would also say, if you want to be extra like super formal and polite, you could say domo arigato gozaimasu, which is incredibly polite. I think I've read in certain places that being that polite can be a bit of a put off to some teachers are like, you don't have to be that polite. Saying like just arigato gozaimasu can usually get you places, but like if like your boss like is driving you home from work because they're really kind and like they like save you during like a car accident, then yeah, you could use like domo arigato gozaimasu. It's very polite though, from what I've read. There's a lot of, time is very complicated. I remember I got so fed up during the time section of Duolingo, I was ready to throw my phone. It was so annoying. I hate it so much. But I can check the time, right? It is Sanji. Shoot, I forgot how to do those. Sanji Jukupun. It's hard to do ones that are in the teens, like 19, 18. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 10, 9, maybe? I don't know that one, but I think I was pretty close. At least I hope so. Who knows? Yeah, I didn't write down any of my vocabulary for like the stuff that I've learned in the home section, but it's mostly been stuff, stuff like learning what like bathtub is and stuff like that. I think that was part of the vocabulary, but I haven't written it down yet. That's the section I'm on now though. Although they edited Duolingo, like Duolingo has been updated a few times, so there is separate sections for katakana now, so I'm going to go through those because before I continue to learn like, stuff like in my daily life and stuff like that, I should probably learn the other alphabet. But I have a lot of notes on kanji. A lot of kanji notes. I've learned quite a few. I wrote this one down myself. Ame. I like ame, the kanji for ame, because ame is rain. You could also use it with the kanji for water, if you use the kanji for rain and the kanji for water, it comes, water is mizu in Japanese, and rain is ame. So if you put the kanji for rain, ame, and then after it you put the kanji for water, you get ame mizu, which is how you say rainwater. So sometimes it makes sense, sometimes it doesn't, but usually if you think about it hard enough, it does make sense, but it's, you know, it's not always that easy. I've noticed that sometimes it makes sense to the Japanese, but sometimes I find myself not really knowing. So that was my little Japanese lesson. I still have a ton to learn. I haven't been on Duolingo today, and I probably should, but before I end this video, I will take a second and show you this real quick, because I did do some. It's not a lot, but I did do some just for fun because I wanted to learn a bit. I have to get into the sun because I wrote this with pencil. So this is what I've been doing. I decided that I would do a little extra, while I'm learning Japanese, I decided at the very least I would teach myself Hangul so that when I go, after I'm fluent in Japanese and I've learned the language, I am moving on to Korean after that, and I figure, learning Hangul would be a good start. After I memorize Hangul, I'll focus, I'm gonna focus on my Japanese, but a little extra Korean here and there. I've heard that Hangul isn't as difficult to learn as Japanese stuff. This was what was on Duolingo. The first stuff that I learned. These are the first words that I learned. I'm sure it's mirrored, but this is what I learned. And so I find that the Japanese language is much more, it's hard. The characters are harder to write. I find hiragana and katakana, there's a lot more flourishes in it, whereas, Hangul seems to be a lot of circles and lines, which is not that complicated, so I find it easier to write, just write it. But honestly, I'm so used to writing in hiragana now and katakana that I don't find it as difficult as I did. I noticed I'm being extra careful while I'm drawing the Hangul, and I think that I learned that from Japanese. So I think that I've learned some valuable lessons. Anyway, that is number 1 in my journey to mastering Japanese and Korean. And maybe other languages along the way. We'll just have to see.